uniform now would respond and meet with you and handle the emergency or respond to the emergency.
Drive around in a typical LAPD black and white patrol car?
Correct. Marked vehicle, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you working on Saturday night, November 6th, 2021, between 10 and 10:30 in the evening?
I was.
In the Hollywood division, are Saturday nights generally busier for law enforcement?
Yes, they are.
That night at around 10:20 p.m., did you respond to a 911 call?
I did.
Just so that the jury is clear, when you respond to a 911 call, can you explain to them exactly how it is you receive information from someone who would say call 911?
Sure. So it starts with the person calling for police service. It could be anybody. They call 911 for an emergency. It goes to a person who takes the call, receives the information from the caller, and then they pass that information on to a dispatcher who directly communicates with us. And then we get that information from them.
So when you're out in the field and you're receiving, when you receive that information, do you receive that over your radio?
I do, yes.
When you're receiving information through the radio from a 911 call, is that really just a summary of the 911 call?
Right. That's correct.
Okay. That night, November 6, 2021, do you recall the general area that you responded to at around 10:20?
I do. Selma Avenue, Argyle Avenue, that intersection, and also Selma and El Centro. They're separated by 1 block from each other.
Wait, you said Selma and Argyle and what?
And Selma and El Centro.
El Centro.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask Mark my first exhibit, 1-page document with a map. It may be marked Peoples 1.
Does the defense have this?
I just went over the exhibits with Mr. Tacopina.
All right, that's Peoples 1 for identification.
Yes, and if I can, Your Honor, I'll mark Peoples 2 at the same time.
What is it?
It's a satellite view photograph from Google of the same area generally depicted in Peoples 1. Okay. Sergeant, I'm showing you what I just marked as Peoples 1. I'm going to start broadly with, do you recognize the general area that is depicted in that map?
I do.
Now, you said that you responded to Selma and Argyle, correct?
That's correct.
Do you see where that's depicted on this map?
I do.
Can you point that out?
Sure. This intersection here.
There's a pointer there somewhere. You can use that. Easier.
This intersection here. Selma being east-west, Argyle being north-south.
Does the court need to describe it any further if it's marked? Thank you. And you said you responded to Selma and El Centro, correct?
Correct.
Now, I just want to point out for the record that on Peoples 1, there is an icon of a firearm just meant for representative purposes, not displaying anything specifically. Okay. Showing you Peoples 2, does this appear to be the same? Does this appear to depict the same area that you just went over, Selma and Argyle and El Centro and Selma?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to stick with Peoples 1. If you recall, what was the nature of the call that you initially responded to at that location?
It came out as a possible shooting had occurred.
Did it give any details about a particular area?
It indicated Selma and Argyle.
How familiar were you with that area of Selma and Argyle?
Oh, very familiar. I'd worked Hollywood several years prior to that date.
And I neglected to ask, but I should. How long have you worked for the LAPD?
It'll be 11 years this March.
And do you recall how long you were at Hollywood, did you just say?
About 8 years.
8 years, okay. If you recall, what were some of the buildings or businesses that were at that intersection of Argyle and Selma?
Sure. So, at the northeast corner here, there's a hotel, a recording studio, and a nightclub here in the Argyle. And across from that on the west side is an MTA bus depot turnaround, where MTA employees take their buses in and conduct their business. On the southwest corner here of Selma and Argyle is all residential. And then southeast corner here of Selma and Argyle, this is developing residential at the time, I believe.
Okay. Stick with the building where you described the bus terminal was. If you remember or recall, was there also residences above the bus depot?
That's correct.
And when you say residential, would that be like an apartment building?
Yes.
All right. And the southwest corner, that building that you described as residential, would that also have been an apartment building?
Yes.
The uniform that you're currently wearing, it appears you're equipped with something almost dead center in the middle of your chest. Can you describe what that object is for the jury?
This is a body-worn camera.
And were you wearing a body-worn camera that day, November 6, 2021?
Yes, I was.
How does that camera operate?
So, it's always in what we call standby mode. So, it's not actively recording, but it's recording 2 minutes of film, no audio, just film only. And at the time you activate it through this button here, this circle, it'll capture the last 2 minutes of video only, no audio, but the audio starts when you activate it. So you have a 2 minute, what we call buffer of video leading up to that activation where it's now both audio and video. So we activate that when we have public contact to capture the encounter or the incident. When we're responding to emergency calls, lights and sirens, we have it on before we even meet with anybody to document the response there. And then when the contact is over with and it's no longer needed, we just power it down by activating the same button.
Okay. Say you're working a typical shift, you record video on your camera, your shift is over. What do you do with the camera at the end of the day?
So at the end of the day, we have docking systems mounted in the hallway, and we mount these at the bottom. There's a connector where it charges the camera, and it also takes the video recorded from the camera and uploads it into our storage cloud, if you will, so it can be accessed later.
Are you able to access your videos later?
I am, yes.
Now, in anticipation of your testimony today, did you go back and re-watch your video from what would almost be almost 4 years ago?
Yes, I did.
Okay. That day, November 6, 2021, you said you were wearing a camera, but did you activate your camera in response to this specific call?
Yes, I did.
All right, Your Honor, I'd ask Mark. My next exhibit, which is a DVD, has one video file. It could be marked as People's 3. And the video file that is on the DVD has an accompanying audio. It could be marked as People's 4.
You talking about the transcript?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
People's 4.
I don't know what I said.
You have transcripts for everybody?
I do.
Alex, can you distribute the transcripts?
We have a second to each other.
To talk with each other?
Yeah, isn't it?
Sure. Bottom of the page?
No, actually, you know what? No. End of line 9. So it's a line and a half.
Have they made a formal objection?
Hold on. Is there an objection to that?
Yes.
Alex, could you distribute the transcripts to everybody? Does anybody at the table need a transcript? Everybody have almost everybody have a transcript? Missing one? All right, everybody has one, all 16 jurors? All right. Mr. Przelomiec, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Sergeant, I have the video, the sole video that's on the DVD up on my computer, and I have it paused at 2 seconds on the video player. I know it's kind of a blurry and out of context image, but if you can, do you recognize this to be your body-worn video captured that night?
Yes.
Okay.
For the record, that's P3 is being displayed.
Yes. Correct.
All right, I'm going to actually play the video all the way through, and then I'm going to ask you some follow-up questions based on the video.
Okay.
So, starting it at 2 seconds.
Yeah, there's only one call, too.
Just for 1606 Argyle, 1606 Argyle. scene on Selma towards El Centro. 1445 D647.
I'm code 6 at Selma and El Centro.
623, Roger, Selma and El Centro. 624, Roger.
What's the description?
Suspect, 2 out black, wearing a white shirt, red shorts. Number 2, wearing all black clothing.
White shirt, red pants? Right. Okay, should I make this for you?
623,
Some people are calling saying that there was a shooting over here at this corner. Did you hear any gunshots?
I thought I did hear it, but I wasn't sure. But it was 2 shots.
Okay.
It was a gunshot, it was 2 shots. But now, it was down there. It was down there.
Yeah, U3 Roger, I'm meeting with an MTA employee now at Selma Oregon northwest corner. He's advising he heard 2 shots in the area. In the direction of Vista Del Mar and Selma. So yeah. Okay, cool. Did you hear any arguing or tires screeching or peeling out, anything like that? Okay, just 2 pops?
Yeah, just 2 pops. You know, I was sitting right there, I was swimming, I said, that's crazy. I said, oh, that sounds like a shot. A couple of guns, but, you know, it could have been that sound, but then that sound was happening. But it did sound like that sound, but it was right down there.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. He heard 2, possibly could have been gunshots in that direction, which is by Vista Del Mar. And didn't hear any arguing or fighting leading up to that. No screaming, no tires screeching, anything. And we can go on Selma to Vista Del Mar. Vista Del Mar is that weird street that snakes around behind that club. Maybe over there? Yeah.
shooter?
I saw 4 dudes now, like 10 minutes ago. That's all I shot was the police.
You remember what he was wearing?
Okay. Now that we've watched the entire video all the way through, do you recognize, is that an accurate depiction of your activities that night?
Yes, it is.
Near the beginning of the transcript on page 2. And if you need me to go back to the video to refresh me, just let me know.
Thank you.
But at the beginning of the transcript on page 2, around line 7, and then continuing to line 9, you say, I think you're talking to a fellow officer, "Nothing, huh?" Followed by, "Yeah, it was only one call, too." What were you referencing in making those statements?
So I was asking another officer who, I don't remember it being so long ago, but if they had seen anything, they hadn't. And then the comment about one call, well, when there's a shooting, especially in a densely populated area, you get more than one person calling. And that's always an indication that you more than likely have a legitimate shooting, because when you get one call, and I dealt with this as recent as of yesterday, and I've been dealing with my whole career. We have people that suffer from mental illness that live in the city, and it's very real for them, and they'll call and say that they heard or saw something. A lot of times it's a shooting. So one call will come out because it's not actually a real shooting, but to them it is. So they call, and we keep track of those incidences, and we find out later on who keeps making those same calls. So when we have one call, especially in a densely populated area, it could be somebody suffering from a mental illness, or it could be a prank call, because we do deal with that, false reports of emergencies. When we have a legitimate shooting, and typically you'll have multiple radio calls, multiple people calling in, because you hear the shots, you see the shooting, there's witnesses, right? And then when you get there, you have people coming out, leaning out of the windows, pointing, that sort of things.
So when you say to the fellow officer, "Yeah, it was only one call," or words to that effect, are you essentially communicating right off the bat, "I'm not so sure this is going to be a real shooting call"?
Right, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Shortly after that, there's a paragraph between 10 and 14 that starts with "all units, shooting just occurred." Can you describe for the jurors what that language is, or where that's coming from?
Sure. So this is actually the second radio call that came out. So the first call prompted our response there, and while we are there, this line here, 10 to 14, is an additional radio call. So now it's 2 radio calls. And so those comments there give a suspect description, a location of a shooting that occurred, clothing description of the suspects, a description of what happened. He fired into an unknown vehicle, unknown victims down, and then last direction of travel there, the last sentence, last seen on Selma towards El Centro.
Would it be fair to say that the first call that came in was not captured on your body-worn camera because of the buffering that you were talking about?
Correct. That call came out before I initiated my Code 3 response. You actually see me writing parking tickets. It came out while I was doing that, prior to me activating it.
When you say Code 3 response, what does that mean?
Right, sorry. So Code 3 is a designation that we use to denote that we're responding lights and sirens. We call that our Code 3 equipment. So.
Okay. Now, you said that second call comes out with information that there are potential suspects on Selma towards El Centro, and it gives a description of the clothing of the suspects, correct?
Correct.
If you need me to go back to the video, I will, but do you recall from watching the video where you were when you received that radio transmission?
I believe I was actually at the intersection of Sunset and El Centro. I'm sorry, Selma and El Centro.
So you're at the location where the call is saying the suspects are, correct?
Correct.
So what did you do?
Continued to look out the window and canvass and see if there were those anybody matching that description of those suspects present.
Is it fair to say you did not see anyone that matched that description?
No, I did not. Yeah.
Okay. I believe on the recording you say, I'm code 6 at Selma and El Centro. Can you just explain what code 6 means?
Sure. We use these codes for brevity and clarity. It just means this is where I am. So if I say I'm code 6 at Selma and El Centro, this just means I'm there present at Selma and El Centro. So they know where I am, right? There's officer safety reasons and then letting everybody know that I'm there.
Okay. So taking me back to that night, you received first call, Selma and Argyle. Second call, Selma and El Centro. You happen to be there when you received the second call. You've not seen what is supposed to be described there. First, do you, based on your long work in patrol, do you have any reason why it's possible that that information would come out, but those people wouldn't actually be there at that time?
Maybe a delay in reporting.
Okay.
Right.
So it's possible they were there earlier, and as it gets filtered through the multiple people to get to you, it's just not there at that time?
Correct.
And then you, as you're at that intersection, Selma and El Centro, you're not seeing these people, what do you do after that?
Well, that was when I approached the MTA employee who was seated in his bus, the MTA lot.
And what's the point of approaching the MTA employee?
Well, when we get to something as a report of a shooting, we have to do everything we can to determine what happened, if anything, right? When we get there, we have to work with what we got, not with what we'd like, but we work with what we got. So if there's anybody in the area, I'd make it a point, well, obviously, to go talk to them. Hey, did you hear anything? Did you see anything? There are some people who are reluctant to call the police, but if they're approached when you get there, they may actually provide you some information to work with.
Okay. Is it fair to say at that point you were having trouble determining if a crime had even occurred?
That's correct, yeah.
After speaking with the MTA employee, he directed you generally to the area of Vista Del Mar and Selma, correct?
Correct.
And Vista Del Mar is that small street between El Centro and Argyle?
Correct, this one here.
Okay. But is it fair to say that even the MTA employee told you he wasn't sure if it was gunshots? He said possible?
Right, and we all heard that on the video. He said maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Could have been something to that effect.
At around that point in the transcript, page 4, around line 14, you're told through the radio, quote, the PR from incident 4245 does not wish to meet. Can you explain what that means in layman's terms?
Sure, so prior to this, I had actually, and we saw that on the video, I had asked if the PR, which stands for person reported, that could be anybody who calls 911, that's how we refer to it, person reported. I asked if they would like to meet. I do this on almost every call because it makes sense to just meet with the person who saw what they saw and decided to call the police. So that's what I was doing there. Incident 4245 is just the last four of the incident number, which is unique to each call, so we can differentiate one call from the other.
Were you hoping to receive additional information from the reporting person? Is that your purpose in trying to meet with them?
Correct, yes.
And when you're told that that person does not want to meet with you, how does that affect your investigation?
Well, it's tough. I mean, I know there's maybe there's a big expectation on us when we arrive to just figure it out on our own, but the reality is we need the public's help. We need to meet with people who saw what happened and determined they needed to call the police. There are witnesses, there are best means of investigation for sure.
Okay. When you approach the intersection of Vista Del Mar and Selma, so now we're about right where this icon is, where did you go?
So we went to the, as was indicated in the comments of the call, the parking lot next to the stop sign is how it was described. And that was the information we had to work off of. And right here is a stop sign controlling traffic east and west on Selma. And there is a parking lot there, which we saw in the video. So
I'm going to stop you, Sergeant,
sure.
really quick, because when you say right here, we have to identify where you're pointing.
Sure.
So my recollection when you said right here, and correct me if I'm wrong, was sort of maybe just above where the icon is, the gun icon?
Correct, northwest corner of Vista Del Mar and Selma, that parking lot there.
Okay, and I'm actually going to switch over to People's 2, this photograph. I'm going to zoom in where the same icon is, just to orient us. Would that be that same corner that you're talking about? I know Vista Del Mar is not labeled, but is that Vista Del Mar?
Correct, it would be this parking lot.
Okay.
On the northwest corner.
And if it's easier for you to describe where you went on the photograph, would you do that? If you want me to flip back to the map, People's 1, just let me know.
Well, this is fine.
So where did you go after you got to the intersection?
So when I got here to the northwest corner, I exited my vehicle and walked the actual parking lot on the northwest corner.
So are you saying you stopped your patrol car right at that corner?
No, I would say just north of mid-block.
Okay. Is there any point or reference you can point to on here where your car was stopped?
So on this map, I think a good approximate would be right above the N here on this Hollywood Levon on the map.
Okay. And so you drove your patrol car up this street and parked it there, correct?
Correct.
Where did you go after you got out of your car?
To the parking lot here in the northwest corner of Selma and Argyle.
On the video, we saw you and your partners interacting with someone holding a skateboard after you got out of your car. To your knowledge, did that person provide any details about the crime?
No, we didn't receive any information to work with from him.
Okay. On the video, we saw you walking through the parking lot. What was your point in walking through the parking lot?
Well, the comments of the call updated and again directed us to that lot next to the stop sign as it's described. At that point, we're looking for evidence of a shooting. In that specific scenario, vehicles with windshields and windows that are destroyed, flat tires on vehicles, damage to vehicles, impacts from firearms.
Did you see any of that?
We did not.
Okay. Did you find any victims in the parking lot?
No.
Would you describe the parking lot as nearly full of cars?
Yes.
Towards the end of your video clip, we heard you and your partner addressing someone who was off camera. Do you recall that?
Yes.
If you can describe that person at all, who was that?
Can't recall what he looked like, but I believe he was a resident or somebody that was occupying that apartment there above the parking lot. And I can't recall, but from watching the video, he said he saw 2 guys, and then the rest you can't hear on video. Okay. But I do remember independently that he also didn't provide anything. He just didn't have anything to provide us that we could work with in terms of investigation.
So you talked to the MTA employee, you talked to a skateboarder, you talked to a resident at a building there. Fair to say none of them provided you details about this crime?
Correct.
Okay. At that point, did you know where, if at all, this shooting had occurred?
No.
How would you categorize the search that you and your partners did of the street of Vista Del Mar, just north of Selma?
Categorize or characterize?
Yeah, how would you characterize it?
I would say typical of responding to a shooting call. We're looking for victims that are down. We're looking for witnesses who can direct us to suspects or victims who are down. We're looking for damage to vehicles or buildings, impacts, right, from gunfire, those sorts of things.
Would you say that you and your partners searched every inch of that street?
We didn't search every inch of that street. No.
Okay.
Can't say that.
As you sit here, can you say to a certainty that there was not a fired cartridge case in that street on Vista Del Mar?
I can't say that I may have missed something. It's possible.
Okay. The last exhibit I have for you, Your Honor, Justice Marcus equals 5. Is it reasonable, in your opinion, to believe that if there was a expended cartridge casing in that street, that you may have missed it?
Yes.
Oh. What is the People's 5?
People's 5 is another map, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Is it a map or is it an aerial photograph?
It's a map. And it
There
has...
is objection to that last question.
Can we have the grounds with the objection?
Sure.
What, read the question back, please.
Mention speculation.
Is it reasonable, in your opinion, to believe that if there was an expended cartridge casing in that street that you may have missed it?
Sustain. As phrased.
In your experience working patrol, is it reasonable that sometimes you will respond to a shooting and miss certain evidence such as fired cartridge casings?
That's correct.
And if you miss a fired cartridge case, how is it that you could say, yeah, on that instance I missed that piece of evidence or something like that?
You mean how would I find out later?
Yes.
A couple ways. I mean, somebody finds it the next day when the light's up and they see it, and they call the police and say, hey, this doesn't look right. That's one way.
Has that happened in your career?
I have heard of that happening. It hasn't happened to me.
Is it typical that after a case is investigated by a patrol officer, it's passed on to a detective?
Yes.
And have you heard of occasions where the detectives will go back and search an area and find something that patrol officers missed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Now I'm going to get People's 5, the map, and it's annotated with 4 different colored arrows, if I may.
Yes.
Sergeant, the area of People's 5 here, you've already described this to be the area that you responded to that night, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree that the arrows generally reflect the path that you took as you were driving around in your patrol car as we watched it on the body of the video?
Yes.
So as you started down here where the number 1 is, headed north on El Centro, made a left turn on Selma, then come south on Argyle, and made a right turn on Sunset?
Right, westbound turn on the Sunset, yes.
Okay. And when you were on Sunset, did you make a U-turn and then head back up Argyle?
Correct.
Did you cross Selma and go into the bus depot on the corner of Argyle and Selma?
Correct.
And then did you come out and go to Vista Del Mar and then go north on Vista Del Mar?
Correct.
And would the yellow generally reflect it's very hard to see, but would that generally reflect where you walked through the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Let me see if the sidebar not on the record, please.